In this lesson, we're going to be setting up our workspace, and then we're going to make sure that it has all the correct settings. So to get started, let's go to our Settings and Preferences window and change the working units from centimeter to inch. And then we're going to go to our grid options, and we're going to change the grid lines every unit from 5 to 10. And then we're going to unselect the subdivision lines because we don't really need them. All right, so apply and close. Now that we have the scene and the units set up, we can bring in our image planes. So let's start by creating a polygonal plane. All right. And we're going to get rid of some of this extra geometry. So we're going to take the subdivision width and height and change them both from 10 to 1. And then we are going to rotate this 90 degrees so it's facing forward. And then we are going to scale it up by 66 in all three axes, both X, Y, and Z. So come in here and change that from 1 to 66. And there we have our image plane. So let's duplicate this guy a couple of times. We'll duplicate him once and bring it back, say, maybe about a negative 100 units in the Z direction. We're going to duplicate it again, and this time we're going to rotate it. All right. And like the other one, we're going to move this aside by negative 100 units or so. It doesn't really matter how far you go, just so long as you give yourself enough space to work with. And now we have this third plane. So what exactly do we need this for? Well, we are going to move this back and put it either in front of or behind this first one. It doesn't really matter, like I said before, just so long as you give yourself enough room to work with in your working area. Okay. So we have 3 image planes. Let's assign some shaders to these guys and put a texture on them. So for the first one, we're going to assign a surface shader. And with that shader, we're going to put in a image file. So all these texture files will be provided with the tutorial, so you don't have to worry about that. And for this first plane, we're going to use robot front JPEG, like that. All right. Let's go to press 6 so we can see our textures. And there's our first image plane. All right, let's do the side one as well. Same process as before. Assign a surface shader. Input a texture. And this time we'll use the robot side JPEG. All right, so we got the front and we've got the side. Now we have the that extra plane. Well, what exactly we need that for? I mean, well, I'm going to show you. We are going to put in another image plane from the front perspective of the robot. Only this time we're going to be able to see how each part has its own little fitting that allows it to assemble with the rest of the body. What exactly do I mean? Well, I'll show you. First, let's hide the other planes, and we're going to assign a surface shader to it like the others. And in the out color, we're going to input a texture file, not folder. And we are going to use the robot front no body JPEG. All right. Now, as you can see here, the robot is not in fact one piece. It's actually created out of several, 11 to be exact. You've got the head, you got the arms, you've got the body, which is not visible in this picture right here, the lower torso, and then you have the wheels. This is what's going to give our character the ability to move each of these segments independently of each other. So the head will be able to pivot and rotate from side to side. The arms will be able to rotate up and down, and the wheels will be able to roll forward and backward. This is something very new to 3D printing. Well, maybe not that new. People have been using it to create objects with moving parts. But as far as toy creation and figures, this is a relatively new concept. Seeing as how in the old days each part had to be cast and molded and fabricated independently and then assembled afterwards. Whereas in this case, we're gonna show all. Whereas in this case, we have a complete figure with its moving parts already assembled during production. Okay, so as I pointed out before, each piece has its own little extension that comes out, and these extensions act as basically a kind of anchor for each piece, keeping it from being separated from the rest of the main body. This is going to come in very much in handy as we move along. So now that we have our image planes set up, let's put them each in their own layer just for the sake of tidiness. So for the first image plane, we're going to assign it to its own layer and call it image plane front 1. We're going to select the second image plane, do the same thing with it, create its own layer, call it image plane front 02. And finally, the side plane. All right, so now each of our image planes is assigned to its own layer, which can be turned on and off at will, which will make things very a little easier when it comes time for the actual modeling. All right, so now that we have our image plane set up, let's have a closer look at the actual character. As you can see, it's a very simple character, a cute little robot, Wall-E-like character. And as you can see from looking at these image planes, there isn't really a whole lot of intricacy and details in the modeling. It's composed pretty much of basic polygonal shapes, spheres, cylinders, cubes. So if you're not 100% confident with your modeling abilities, there's no need to worry. We're not going to be doing anything particularly fancy throughout this tutorial. But if you need to get a little more familiar with the modeling process, I highly recommend you check out some of Digital-Tutors modeling tutorials. They're very good. In fact, they are some of the reason I'm as good as I am at Maya today. So thank you, Digital-Tutors. So this more or less concludes our lesson for this tutorial. In our next lesson, we'll be actually delving into the modeling process, starting with the head.